the great thing about guitar too is bending the strings adds so much personality. You know what I mean? Which piano, keyboards, you don't get that so much, but guitars, bass, anything with strings, you can bend and stretch those notes out a little bit, give it more character. It's one of the things I always liked about the guitar.
Well, you take someone like Angus Young versus Ace Frehley versus Zack Wylde versus, I don't know, Steve Vai with the whammy bar, right?
Yeah.
They're all hitting the same notes. There's only 12.
Right.
But the vibrato, like you can hear Ace Frehley and know. Zack Wylde. Angus Young, I think, probably the most out of all of them.
Honestly, I hate to say it, and people would say it to me growing up, but guitar players are a dime a dozen, right? I mean, let's face it. But you get these guys that just have that touch that makes them stand out from everyone else. And those things, you know, you can't learn those. It's like you're born with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Ace Frehley, like technically.
Probably not a great player, but the parts and just the attitude and sound, right?
Yeah. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
You hear it and you're like, I want to pick up. Maybe here's something to think about. Maybe it's so simple that it connects to you and it makes you think, that's so awesome. I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But
yeah,
but you can, and I can maybe on a good day. But for the most of the people that have never touched a guitar, they think they can do it because it sounds so simple and it's so inviting.
That's another thing is when you forget how like interesting the guitar is. You know, it's like you see it every day. You play it every day. You pick it up every day. You've been playing for 30 years, blah, 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 blah. And you forget about all those innocent feelings. And when you first discovered the guitar, just how, you know, awesome it is and how unknown it is, right? Just the simplest things like blow your mind. So it's fun when you can kind of like remember those feelings and be like, oh, I remember why I liked the guitar. I remember why I started playing guitar, right? It was just like whatever that sound was that you heard. And then you listen to it 30 years later and you're like, well, that's not so hard. But at the time it was like, wow, it's just incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like you could apply that to life, like a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You take a relationship for granted. It's always there. It's always there. But when you didn't have, like, say you're married or you have a great girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, you kind of start to take it for granted. Oh, it's always there. It's always like, But when you're single and you're a kid and you ain't got nobody, you're like, oh, well, fuck.
Yeah.
It's unattainable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great if you can keep that mentality and remember, you know, what got you into it in the beginning, you know, and keep that feeling and not forget.
I think that's a great philosophy for life.
Yeah.
Just always remember like how to rekindle that, that flame and that excitement for for whatever it may be, relationship, guitar, music.
Yeah. Everything about it, just the shape and the way it feels and even just like the strings and, you know, just, wow.
What was it like when you got your first quality guitar after, I mean, a lot of people that have played guitar usually start off with a piece of junk or something that's very unplayable, whether it be like acoustic with the worst action, the biggest strings, and then, or like that Tiesco over there.
Right.
What was it like for you when you got your first real guitar? Were you already pretty progressed, or was it like one of those things where it just made you feel like you could hit that next level?
I remember like getting my first real Strat, and before that you're playing whatever knockoff guitar and you're trying to play blues and sound like Jimi Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan, right? It's just that classic tone, Strat tone, and you're not going to get it out of this guitar made in Indonesia or whatever, or that guitar made in whatever. It was like, oh, this is that sound. This is like an actual Fender Stratocaster through an actual bass, Bassman head or Fender whatever, blues, exactly, whatever, combo, tube head. When you finally get the real shit and you actually hear it the way it actually does sound on the records, it's like, oh, so now I'm actually sounding like the record, not sounding like someone trying to sound like the record, because I'm using the same guitar you used on that record.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a big thing when you can you save up and you buy like a real guitar, and it's like, that's the tone, man. It's like, you're not going to get it from that guitar or this guitar. You gotta use this guitar because that's where it came from. So I remember that being a thing. I was like, oh wow, man, it sounds so much more legit.
And then you probably couldn't put it down.
No.
It was just like bathroom, table, eating.
Come home from school in high school. Got to do your homework before you play your guitar. Fine. Take the guitar case, open it up next to the table. I'll do my math and look at it. You know what I mean? I'll do my homework, but I'm going to sit here and I can smell it. You know what I mean? It's just like you're obsessed with it.
I think that's what it takes to make it in the entertainment industry in general, whether it be a guitar or a bass or a keyboard, or even like if you're going to be an actor, right? You got to have that drive. So I've talked to like some UFC fighters and photographers on this channel, and the common theme is like, you always got to be open to the opportunity, but you also have to be obsessed about the opportunities and whatever it may be in that field. So it's great to hear that it's the same thing. So there's a very common thread going through this channel.
Yeah. Yeah. You come across people that are like great at what they do, or they're just like really, you can tell that they just mastered it. And you're like, wow, what trauma did you go through as a child that made you want to lock yourself in your room for 8 hours and just play and play and play and be obsessed with, you know what I mean? It's like, you have to be obsessed with it. And it's just like, it's your whole life, right? Otherwise, it becomes a hobby and just something that you kind of do on the side. I think, people that will actually like wake up and like, I have to do this, and like think about it all the time. It's not like, oh, I think I'll do this, and then you just do it. It's like you have to do it, right? It's like a calling from inside you.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely is. And like, there's maybe some things like you might be good at writing, but you have to develop it. You might have a natural talent for guitar or drums. You have to develop it.
Yeah.
Natural sport athletic ability, you have to develop it. So that's also a common theme. Like maybe some people think that, oh, I see this band on YouTube now, not MTV, but I see this band and they're just overnight success. People don't realize what it takes to get to that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to put the work in, that's for sure. You don't just wake up one day and you're Eddie Van Halen,
Which I listened to the Brothers book.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard that, that's a good one. He talks about the grind that those brothers had. And you don't think it, but they supported their family. Like it was His quote is, "You got to work your ass to the bone,"
Mm-hmm.
and they did.
Yeah.
Even as talented as those brothers were,
Sure.
they still had those jobs that they hated, and they found time. So it goes back to what you're saying about looking at that guitar while you're doing your homework.
Mm-hmm.
It's there.
That's right.
You might be like, all right, well, 2 + 2, 4 minus the 7, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
It's always there on your mind. And
it's on your shoulder. Like,
exactly.
hey, let's come on, hurry up.
Yeah. It's a meditation too. It's something where you can just like, your brain goes somewhere else, whether it's art, music, whatever. For some reason, it like puts your brain in the right spot, right? Whether you're going a UFC fighter, or you're training or whatever. But for me, as a guitar player, growing up, it was always the thing that calmed my brain. I was always a nervous kid. I was nervous, Put a guitar in my hands, totally fucking chill. Totally cool. So you learn, I guess, what makes you happy, hopefully at a young age, and just hope for the best, man.
So while you're playing, like you pick up the guitar, it's obvious you can't wait to start playing. You're messing with the pedals. When you start playing and you sit down, you got the pedal where you want it, you got the amp sounding. Are you just often are you thinking about anything? Are you humming notes while you play? Are you thinking about a scale that you're working on, or is it what's going through your mind as you're doing that?
The best things always happen when you're not thinking about it. I think, like, when I'm working, if I'm like on tour and I'm teching, there's a lot of guitar in hand hours, but you're not necessarily playing guitar. You're stretching the strings, you're tuning guitar, whatever. But you're not sitting down and you're not thinking about anything. And a lot of times, you'll just play something, and then it'll be like, wow, that's really cool. So what I do is I just pull my phone out and I do a little voice record, and I'll play the part. And then I come home from tour and I have all these ideas, and a lot of them are crap. But then you come across one or two that are like, oh, that's actually pretty cool, and develop it into a track, like an instrumental track or library track or whatever. That's what I usually find myself doing, and then trying to dial in the tones to match what I want it to sound like, because I'm just gonna direct acoustic into my phone, play the part, and then I'll forget about it, and then come home from tour and it's like I've got all this whole folder full of ideas. And then you come up with some great stuff out of that because you're not thinking about it. It just comes natural. And then the trick is to get your phone out before you forget it and then record it.
So you mentioned it's a meditative device, if you will. While you're just noodling, I guess, is to clarify the question. While you're noodling, are all the thoughts out of your head, or are you just putting your fingers where they go, or are you thinking about the actual chord structure? And
depends. Yeah. I like to practice blues because it makes me think about the chords and trying to hit the right notes on the right chord changes. Kind of like jazz, but much easier, right? You're only dealing with maybe like three chords rather than all kinds of different chord changes. But yeah, I like to practice my brain by doing that. But then, like I was saying, the best stuff usually comes when you're not even trying. You just pick it up, and it might be that you pick up this type of guitar and you play this thing, but you wouldn't play that thing if you picked up that guitar, because this guitar feels like it wants to sound like this. So you play that and you're like, oh, this is great. It works for this. Then you go play it on the Les Paul or whatever, and it does not translate at all. So things happen, different ways like that.
To bring up like AC/DC once again, do you think the SG and that Gretsch, do you think that was a big part? Like those guitars sound like that? Whereas if you had a Telly, it's not going to sound like that.
Definitely not going to sound like that. I probably could have gotten a similar result with a Les Paul than an SG, but a lot of his tone that's great is it's just basically straight into an amp. right? And you're just hearing the tube amp in that mahogany and the humbuckers. And there's not a lot of gain, really. Too much gain will hide your tone. So you got to find that right spot to where it brings out the tone, but doesn't mask it. So that's what I love about Angus Young's tone. It's just so pure. And you can hear the bulbs lighting up in the amp when he plays.
Yeah, the dynamics of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really like the guitar is a special thing. And if people have never played a guitar, I hope they try it. And I hope they try a good one if they're over 16.
That's the thing.
Just try a good one.
Try a good one.
Plug it into a nice amp. Find out what amp gets that sound that you like.
Mm-hmm.
And I
spend a little money, take it and get it set up, because you might actually be better than you think. It just might be that your guitar needs some action. You might need to find a good tech.
Yeah. Chris Schleyer.com. Exactly. Yeah, it's a great expression. You know, even
plus it looks really cool when you smash them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Pete Townshend, come on. Not many people smash guitars better than Pete Townshend. Jimi Hendrix, yeah. But I hate that. I hate to see it, but something about that guitar, man, it just brings it out of you, that raw, savage energy.
Think about how much those guitars are worth now that he's smashed.
I know, totally.
He could buy a few more houses.
I'm okay with smashing. I think it looks much cooler to smash a guitar than to have the drum set ripped off the drum riser. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they do that and they take mic stands, they start smashing the drum kit. It's like,
Yeah.
Pete Townshend, man. He's got some attitude.
You think that's because the guitar is like an extension? You're wearing it.
It is.
It's a cross between a hand purse and a handgun. Maybe,
not to mention it's very phallic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that. It's there's a lot of testosterone involved when you pick up a guitar.
Yeah. Which it's interesting that women are the forefront of heavy music now.
Exactly. Back in my day, it was like what you had, Pat Benatar. You had Hart. I don't know, Janis Joplin. She was dead, but yeah, you're right. It's like there's so many great guitar players that are female playing in rock bands these days that you never heard like 20 years ago. I wonder why.
There's Jennifer Batten for Michael Jackson. But see, I had to think hard on that one. Lita Ford.
Yeah.
And the Runaways, which they were all right, but they weren't.
Yeah.
But now you have like this whole Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen this? Like there's a whole like all women metal.
Yeah.
And they're really good.
Shredding it. Just
Shredding.
Killing it.
Baby metal type
Baby
stuff.
metal, Bandmade.
Bandmade's a good one. And then there's there's one from Texas called Die Spitz. But it's like it's so crazy because when we were young, men played Robert Plant, Jimmy Page,
exactly,
Ace Frehley, Lita Ford.
Right.
What?
I know.
Now these women are like, holy cow, these women are rad.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's all been done, man. It's like you're not gonna invent anything new at this point.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you can like tune your guitar a bunch of different ways. Add a string or two. They've done that, but it's like, what are you gonna do? It's really, I can super appreciate listening to someone like Angus Young, or old blues dudes, just guitar out of tune plugged into a fucking amp with no pedals or anything, right? Because
I think it goes back to what we were just talking about, that meditative state where you can sense that someone is just getting it out, like this is what I'm feeling, versus like a process, like everything perfect, which that has its place too. But like, to go to what you're saying about the blues guy out of tune, when you hear that, you're like, oh, that guy's really in pain, and he had a bad day and he's letting it out.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. You don't need to go to school to learn that. You
Yeah.
live on the live out in the real world.
And that's something like, once again, what you were saying about the bends, you can't do that. Like, you can hear a beautiful piano, you can hear blues piano, and it's really cool. But there's something about the expressiveness of bending those strings that gets that point across that I don't think any other instrument, maybe a cello or a violin,
Yeah,
but
you
it's
got a
still
bow,
not, it's still
change
not the
the
same,
timbre. Yeah.
right?
There's a lot of room for error on these things, right?
Yeah.
A lot of room for error.
And then if we talk about what you did in Prick, the error can be the part of
That becomes
whole
the
thing.
magic.
Yeah. So the guitar is king. I'm convinced.
I'm glad we resolved that. Number one.